Hello, and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. We've been working our way through the book of Exodus, and we have come to the tabernacle. And if you haven't caught my other videos about the tabernacle, you'll want to start at the beginning of chapter 25 so that you can get all of the context for the significance of this really important building. Over the past 2 weeks, we have been talking about the Ark of the Covenant, which belongs in the most holy place. And today we are turning our attention to the table that goes in the main section of the tent. So I will begin by reading from my translation from the Hebrew. I'm Dr. Carmen Imes, Associate Professor of Old Testament at Biola University. Thanks for joining me. You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits its length, and a cubit its width, and a cubit and a half its height. You shall overlay it with pure gold and make for it a border of gold all around. You shall make for it a rim of a handbreadth all around, and you shall make a border of gold for its rim all around. You shall make for it 4 gold rings. You shall place the rings upon the 4 corners which are on the 4 feet. The rings shall be close to the rim, to house the poles to carry the table. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, that the table may be carried by them. You shall make its trays, its ladles, its pitchers, and its bowls, with which one may pour out offerings. Of pure gold you shall make them. You shall set upon the table the bread of the presence before me regularly. So here is our table. We're again using the example from the Bible Bricks Sanctuary just as a visual aid. So we have an acacia wood table, and it's overlaid with gold. As I mentioned before, to overlay a piece of furniture with gold is a uniquely Egyptian technology. This particular piece of furniture is 2 cubits by 1 cubit by a cubit and a half high, and you can calculate that in feet by multiplying each dimension by 1.5, because a cubit is about 18 inches. So that makes this 3 feet long and 1.5 feet wide and 2.5 feet high. This one is much too short, and it actually is not exactly in proportion with the covenant chest, but it is kind of a toy, so that's okay. This is made of pure gold or covered with pure gold, which is to say it's unalloyed gold. You can see that they actually made this with brown, representing the acacia wood underneath, and then they overlaid it with these gold bricks, which is fun. Let's see. So it has a border all around. They've made kind of a fancy border with these circles on it. The likely design for the border would have been the same as for the covenant chest, probably a cavetto cornice, which we looked at before. This curved shape around the top of the covenant chest is probably the same here with the table. We're told that it has 4 rings on the 4 corners by the feet, or by the rim. So probably the rim is actually halfway down the table, and it supports the poles as they pass through the rings in order to be able to carry the table and bear its weight. We're also told that there are 4 other types of objects that are made of pure gold and put on the table. So we have trays, ladles, pitchers, and bowls. It's not entirely certain how to translate each of these, and it's unclear what they were used for. The trays could alternatively be bread molds to make these loaves of bread that sit on the table. The ladles, actually, it seems quite likely that the ladles are censers for the burning of incense, because they're called in Hebrew kapot, and a kop is the palm of your hand. And in Egypt, incense censers were actually made in the shape of your forearm. So they show like from the elbow all the way to the hand, and then they hold a cup, and the incense is actually burning in the cup. And so you'll see in Egyptian art lots of examples of Pharaoh and others carrying one of these arm-shaped censers that could easily be called a kapot. So perhaps the censers that are made with the table and the maybe even some of the other objects would have been used for the other furniture in the holy place, including the incense altar. The pitchers and bowls, again, we don't know exactly what they were for. They seem to be related to drink offerings. Drink offerings elsewhere we're told that they would pour out their drink offerings on the altar. So why do these utensils need to be inside the tent? That's kind of unclear, but perhaps they also poured out wine before the Lord, and the aroma of that wine was part of the offering. It's not entirely clear. This table is elsewhere called the table of the presence, the pure table, the golden table, and the table of the rows. Here we have stacks of bread, but they're said as rows, so perhaps they were laying out. What's interesting is that the 12 loaves of bread here represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And Michael Morales points out in his really good book on Leviticus that these loaves of bread that represent the tribes would have been basking in the light of God's presence all week long. So the bread was put out every Sabbath and then kept there for a week and then removed and replaced with fresh bread. And just across the tent from this table is the menorah shedding light, the light of God's presence on the bread. And you can read the details in Leviticus chapter 24, verses 5 through 8. That's where it describes more fully what to do on the table, how and when to exchange the bread. It's called, the offering of bread is called tamid, but it's not that God eats the bread, because they put the loaves of bread out before the Lord, and then they remove them, and it's eaten by Aaron and his sons. They eat the bread that's been sitting in the presence of God, soaking in his presence, if you will, all week long. So it seems really symbolic that it's like the people of God are in God's presence, and that's what is being symbolized inside the tent. Just a beautiful image. So that's the table. We have 2 more pieces of furniture that we're going to read about in the tabernacle instructions and talk about them and their significance. I hope this has been enlightening, and show up next week and we will talk about the menorah. Have a great week.